This story happened to me back in 1984. I was 15 at the time, living in a small town in Minnesota. One late evening, I was hanging out with a bunch of friends, just goofing around the back streets of our town. We settled down at a bus stop, sipping on some beers and swapping scary stories. Tom, looking to stir things up, suggested we take a walk to the local cemetery. We all laughed it off at first, thinking he was joking, but soon we thought, why not? Half an hour later, we were strolling among the tombstones, reading out names and dates of the deceased. One grave in particular caught my attention. It was neglected and overgrown with grass and daisies. The only thing that seemed to adorn it was a colorful photograph of a beautiful girl at the base of the tombstone. Her marble skin, striking blue eyes, and thick auburn hair left a weird, strong impression on me. An ingenious idea popped into my head. Why not tell my friend she was my new girlfriend? Pleased with my thought, I slid the photo out of its frame and tucked it inside my denim jacket's inner pocket. Later, as we were leaving the cemetery, slightly buzzed, I pulled out the photo and showed it to my friends, saying, "You know, guys, meet my new girlfriend." Steve burst out laughing. "Come on, cut the crap. You're probably carrying around your cousin's photo." Everyone laughed. The guys took turns looking at the photo of the deceased girl, marveling at her beauty. "Who is she, and why didn't you tell me about her?" Steve smiled, his voice tinged with mock hurt. I just clapped him on the shoulder and said nothing. That night, I'd had a bit too much to drink and headed home early. I tiptoed into the house, lay down on my bed, and fell asleep instantly. The next morning, Steve woke me up with a call. "Hey," came his cheerful voice over the phone. "Hey, Steve. Listen, why'd you take off so early last night? Your girlfriend was looking for you," he continued. "What?" I thought I'd misheard. "Are you deaf? Your new girlfriend was looking for you. And by the way, Tom's parents are going out of town tomorrow, so..." His words kept ringing in my head. "Your new girlfriend was looking for you. Your new girlfriend." It felt like a bucket of ice water had been dumped on me. Damn, they must have figured out that I took that photo from the cemetery and decided to prank me, I thought. That calmed me down a bit. Sure, it was a dumb joke, and I'd have to tell the truth eventually, that there was no girlfriend, just a photo from a grave. Later that evening, we played baseball. Steve kept teasing me, and I forced a smile. I knew the guys had figured it out, and I didn't want to delve into the topic. I felt uneasy and left early again, citing a promise to help my dad clean the garage. The following morning, my mom woke me up. "Dear, Steve is calling you to the phone." Nervously, I picked up the receiver. "Steve, stop calling in the mornings. I'm sleeping." "Okay, just wanted to say your girlfriend was looking for you again. You always leave before she shows up." "What's her name, by the way?" Steve said. This was no longer funny. I decided to end the joke. "There's no girlfriend, and you know it, but she was looking for you for the second day, and you..." Steve sounded genuinely surprised. "It was just a photo from the cemetery we visited 2 days ago. I was just kidding. Sorry, I lied. I didn't think it would go this far. Can we stop joking now?" Steve was silent, then said, "Kevin, you're probably joking. She really was looking for you. We all saw her." My heart pounded, and it felt like even the neighbors could hear it. My legs turned to jelly. "This can't be happening," I whispered. I was still in disbelief. Thoughts raced through my head. My friends couldn't have known where I got the photo. I'm sure they didn't see me take it. But then who was this girl? Maybe someone else who looked like her, but why was she looking for me? No matter how much I tried to rationalize it, I couldn't. "Steve, are you sure she was looking for me?" "Of course. She mentioned your name and asked where you were." Steve's concerned voice broke through. "I'm not lying, Steve. It was a picture from a grave." My voice shook with fear. We talked for a long time on the phone about it. That evening, when the whole group was together, all anyone could talk about was the ill-fated photo and the dead girl. Everyone was shocked. I spent the evening pale and mostly silent, staring into space. "Kevin, we need to go see Mrs. Butler," Steve finally suggested. "What? To that crazy old lady?" Tom waved it off. "Maybe she's crazy, but everyone knows she's like a witch or something." Steve stopped Tom. "My mom told me how Mrs. Butler cured her stuttering as a kid." "Yeah, and then she probably hexed her poor husband to death," Paul snickered. "What do you say?" Steve turned to me. I got up and said without hesitation, "Let's go." Steve nodded, and I felt slightly encouraged. Mrs. Butler was respected by half the town and scoffed at by the other. Some thought she was a witch, others just a local eccentric. We approached her old house on the edge of town. The fence had lost its former white and was now a dingy gray. The house's facade was cracked, the lawn unkempt and scorched. Steve knocked, and Mrs. Butler opened the door almost immediately, a short old lady with gray hair and deep wrinkles. I told her what had happened. She listened intently, then invited us inside. An unusual gesture, since she was known for her principle of not letting anyone into her home. Those who sought her help said she either came to them or talked at her doorstep. We entered, sat on the couch, and the witch began to speak. "Listen, boy, you made a big mistake taking that photo from the grave. The dead don't like it when the living take things from their burial sites, especially those who died a violent death," she sighed heavily, looking at the photo. "I knew this girl. She died young. A terrible death at the hands of her own father. Her spirit is very restless. If you want to stop being haunted, you must go to the cemetery at midnight and return the photo to the grave. Before you do, say you're truly sorry and leave a daisy next to the photo. Your friends can come with you, but they must wait by the road. When you walk back, don't run and don't look back, and hurry, you have only 3 days." We all sat gaping. I felt so scared I must have turned as white as a ghost. I really didn't want to find out what would happen in 3 days. When Mrs. Butler finished speaking, she stood and silently pointed us to the door. Once outside, we unanimously decided to follow her advice. Night came. We agreed to meet at my house. When I stepped outside, my legs felt like lead. My head buzzed with fear. As if on cue, the sky clouded over and fog descended on the town. We stopped by the road at the cemetery entrance. I stood and watched the fog drift from one tombstone to another. Fear seized every muscle in my body. I reached into my jacket pocket and pulled out the photo. It seemed the dead girl's face was staring right into my soul. I sighed and took a step. Calmly, unhurriedly, I walked among the tombstones, searching for her grave. Finally, I found it and slid the photo back into the frame, placed the flower at the base, closed my eyes, and apologized to the deceased. Having done what the witch instructed, I turned and walked back to the road. I moved slowly, every movement constricted by fear and tension. The air around me seemed to grow colder. My friends stood on the road at the cemetery entrance, staring at me in horror. Suddenly, right above my ear, a chilling female laugh rang out. The guys screamed and scattered. Only Steve stayed, waiting on the road. "Kevin, buddy, just don't turn around," he yelled. My breath caught in terror. "Just don't run. Just don't look back," I whispered to myself. I nearly reached the cemetery exit when something cold touched my neck, like an icy kiss. This time I couldn't hold back and ran. I ran blindly and crashed into Stevie. We fell. I lay on the cool, soft grass, breathing heavily. "Steve, what did you see?" I rasped. "She was following you the whole time. Her fingers were at your neck," he replied. I covered my face with my hands. We lay there silently, probably for another half hour. Before leaving, I glanced over the cemetery one last time. Silence. There's no need to disturb the dead unnecessarily. Years have passed since then. Steve is still my best friend, and my new girlfriend hasn't bothered me again.